Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Jonathan. Love your sweater and your little shirt.
I love yours.
Oh, love your bracelet.
Oh, thank you. I just love you, Dave.
This and that. We are going to be discussing everything going on at the 2022 Four Continents Figure Skating Championships. If you are new here, please subscribe below and smash that like button. Love us, love us, love us. We are just getting really excited and in a strange preparation for the Olympics, where I know it's going to be really tiring for everyone and really exciting, and there's going to be just so much happening with this virus layered on top. It's so much coming at us.
Yeah, I mean, even the news today, there was one thing that said already like 71 people associated with the Olympics already tested positive for COVID upon arrival. But then we also saw Vincent and Tom Z posting their departure videos today. So yeah, it's beginning. It's beginning
earlier. And also, I know I was talking with Bruno Marcotte yesterday, and he said, you know, we just have to have one more week where we can stay away from this virus and get on that plane and get into that bubble. So I think for a lot of people, it's, you know, very exciting. And the last, oh my God, it's here. And it feels odd that it's here, and thinking back to 4 years ago and now, and it seems quick and not, and all of the things that happen between Olympics as you get older. So yeah, it's very exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. So
as am I, Dave, as am I.
4 years ago, I was tired already by this point, but I'm looking
correct.
Yeah. So I'm really
but our first Four Continents that we covered together was in 2014. It was also an Olympic year of Four Continents. So it's kind of fun to come full circle.
Yes, and the first Four Continents I covered, because I started blogging, but I didn't cover Four Continents in 2009. I covered it was when Adam won in 2010. And for him, that was like the big start of his senior career. Obviously, he had been a two-time world junior champion. He won those Four Continents. And then the next season, he won the Japan Open, which was so huge. And he did the Rachmaninoff. And unfortunately, it was like the best he skated that season. And then it was, but it was such a gorgeous program when he did it. And then it never was as gorgeous again because of mistakes. But just kind of interesting things to show what Four Continents can mean in your career. Interesting to see.
That was the Four Continents I first saw Sway and Han. That was the first time I met them, was in 2014. Yeah, amazing.
So it's interesting though, and one thing is that we're going to talk about pairs, we're going to talk about dancing. It's starting to look at, you know, everyone's starting to wonder who's continuing, who's splitting, who's moving on, what happens. You know, this Four Continents, even though we think of it as the consolation prize / stepping stone, even though a week ago Europeans was still Europeans, capital E, capital C, this Four Continents, a little bit of different vibe than usual Four Continents, where everyone but maybe Hanyu and Nathan are there depending on the year, right? Moving ahead, you have to think this, even though the points are the same, right? And if you win, you are considered an ISU medalist, which means it is so much harder to now switch federations. Congratulations. You are now locked in, baby, for like 3 years before you can.
Interesting way to look at that. Okay.
Oh, yes, because look at Deanna, who can't go to the Olympics for Canada because she was a Four Continents medalist in 2018. Because of that, it all slowed down the process of how you get released from a country. And those are the rules. Or if you want to speed up the process, you could pay back every dollar that's ever been put into your career. Now, if you're going to a federation, like if China's trying to build up their arsenal of skaters for the Olympics and build up their roster, they might be willing to fork out every money that's been paid to you in any capacity, every hotel room, anything that's been put into your career. Now, not obviously, this is a response to all of the country hopping that we see when we watch everyone happen. You know, all of these single skaters go to other countries, and then, you know, why is Keegan Canadian? Why is Alexei Paganides like Swiss? And all of these things. So yeah, just an interesting thing to note. When we look at, like, you're locked in, you are locked in. Like, Congratulations. You know?
But it's funny, Four Continents always has had an unusual identity to me as a viewer, because I always thought it seemed an imbalance that we did not have a Europeans to sort of pit some sort of nations against each other, or domestic skaters against each other one more time, or a test run before the World Championship, something like that. So when they first came out with the Four Continents concept, it was very exciting.
It was not.
It
was not.
In concept, I was like, oh, good, there's balance here. But at the time, it was so slow, it almost felt like a Finlandia or something.
It was, my memory.
Not to take away from Jenny's win. That's not to take away.
Well, she joked about this early on because the early iterations, none of the people went. It was always the B-list event. And it was like Jenny, Angela Nikodinov, like the Mummy year, right? Amber Corwin, Yoshi Onda, like, you know, very good skaters, but it was, Michelle Kwan was not going, you know, like she was not even named in withdrawing, right? It was just a different event. So it's really built up over time and becomes so much more exciting, but it still has that feeling, I think, because when we see Four Continents in an Olympic year, it's like, oh, Four Continents, but every other year it's like Four Continents, so exciting. Yes, honey.
Yeah, the more A-listers that started including it in their season, it really elevated it for a while, of course. And it's so strange because in an Olympic year, we know how important Europeans is. So it's an interesting strategy that Four Continents chooses not to be that type of competition, I think based solely on the calendars of most of the nationals competing. Yeah.
And it worked really it works better for the Asian countries because a lot of their nationals are over when we celebrate Christmas in the US. And
however, we will discuss that, like, if you are the Federation of Korea, I'm curious what motivated you to send your entire Olympic team here that worked out really well for some and could have tripped up some others in their momentum.
Yeah.
What would you do, like, as a federation? I mean, the North American federations weren't even sending some of their first alternates because they were so skittish about the COVID situation for the alternates. And I was surprised to see a coach like Brian there, because I think also most coaches that will be at the Olympics were not in attendance at Four Continents.
I think I was surprised to see Brian there on one hand, and maybe he's going from Korea to China. I don't know. I haven't talked to him about his travel plans. But I do wonder, you know, why. And I do know that anyone going to the Olympics has one coach named. So perhaps, is he Jun's coach? Like, who is he listed for, right? Because Tracy will probably be there with Jason Brown. So we don't exactly know who he's listed as. Ghislaine, I imagine, is the coach for Yuzuru Hanyu. So who is Brian listed for? Maybe it's Jun, right? And he also hasn't spent much time with Jun Hwa over the last years. I mean, I don't know what they do over Zoom together, and that's one thing, but in person time where you're feeling each other's energy and really, you know, talking through things more, they haven't had that time in person. So this was an opportunity for them to spend time together should he be the coach taking him to the Olympics. So on that hand, it makes sense. Everyone, you hope that they're in a bubble and just safe and moving forward. Yeah. So we didn't see Marie-France at Europeans. So all of you know, these things play in, and we definitely saw that it wasn't just losing my words, in a lot of these fields here, like people were like, wait, who is that with the guys from Colorado? It was Eddie Shipstad, who works on the pole harness. He's considered one of the best in the business. He's also from the Shipstad family lineage that owned and operated the Ice Follies. So he's like third, fourth generation, like skating royalty family. So interesting there, yeah. But I think a lot of people were wondering, who is, you know, this person? Why is he coaching these people? you said he had interesting pep talks. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was fascinating. You know, we love when they have the microphone in the kiss and cry area to hear things, because Alexa has had some Four Continents great kiss and cry moments that we caught on the microphone. You know, there was that weird kiss and cry moment with Paulina and Gracie Gold. Do you remember that in the Reese's Pieces or something? In any case, this time they had a microphone very close to where the coaches were giving their pep talks. And it's always interesting. I remember Dick Button saying, like, I never understand what the coach is saying at this point. It's all done. Like, what are you going to say now that's going to make a difference? But it was interesting to hear some of these pep talks, especially from Shipstead. He was just sort of like, yeah, you got it. Go ahead. So proud of you. It did feel more like eavesdropping than when we
What does Marlena say to you? What would Marlena say to you before you go out?
She would be like, trust. She would say, let it happen, don't force it. That's what she would say to me. And then I would think, especially for some, yes, it's very different than perhaps your Galena situation. But also, I would think in those moments also, it could be one last reminder to get in your knees. We see Hanyu do that at the board. We see certain people breathe out. Like, I think it would be just as effective to remind someone to release their hips, bend their knees, exhale, and kind of just sort of let something go before they go to center ice, instead of sort of a little tidbit. I'll always remember the Frank Carroll, just think, you've always wanted to be here, and here you are. I'd skate to center ice and be like, what? What kind of comment was that?
That's wonderful. Oh, good. You know, yeah. It is not how a Galena pep talk goes.
I would think not, because she's trying to get you in a fight mode.
Julik, attack. Take your time. Attack. Skate. Long edge. Attack. Everybody move it. Very calm. Давай.
You know what's fun? But what's so funny is, as I leaned in listening to you, I was kind of holding my breath. I was like, what? And then suddenly my body's getting tight. It would not work for me at all.
It's like a centering of like.
Focus, yeah. And I need it's okay, calm it. You've got it, yeah. The opposite of those skaters we know that need to be pushed, yeah.
I don't know if she's different for different people. But that she does that in practice too. So you practice you warm up all of your elements, and she makes you like as nervous as possible, being as intense as possible. Let's put on the program.
Yeah, you got this. Yeah.
This version that Johnny would have like emotional meltdowns, you know, and then.
But maybe she like forced it out of him if she knew there were all these
I think she's simulating the nerves of competition.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what she did for like different people. Like I think Victor is very different. When you watch Victor at the boards, he was like ready to go, you know, and other people are doing whatever. So I think she kind of goes.
I would think a good coach adapts to what the energy is needed in that time. Yeah.
I mean, she does what she does. Let's be honest.
Yeah, within a spectrum. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah. But so to see Eddie like that, but also we saw Pascal Denis from the Gabois IAM school, and he I know works with a lot of the synchro team there. So, but I think each member of the IAM, because they have 11 different teams going, if they had 12, I think they would have half of the ice dance event. And I think there were 11 for 12 in qualifying to the Olympics. Someone can do all of the stats on this, but if you read Sports Rue, they have been fascinated by the IAM school. And I think they're fascinated by the different countries being represented and how they're so good. And the fact that, wait, someone's as dominant as like Team Tudorica, but an ice dance. And what does this all mean? So it's very interesting.
So what we love about that Montreal school is how unique each look each team has, I find.
Although it's been shaded in the past.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's.
But I see individuality among them.
I think that's been a journey, right? Remember when in 2017, Olivia Smart and Adrian Diaz did circles, and everyone's like, oh, it's imitation Papadakis and Cicerone. At that point in time, it was newer. I think they've brought in the Sam Chouinards and other people doing programs, and not all the same thing. So I think that's a journey. I don't think we were having aliens and astronauts falling in love at that point in time. I don't recall that,
Were we even living? Yeah, I mean.
I don't even know. Like, what is happening? For better or for worse?
Right.
Are you watching it on Edge, by the way? Edge?
No, I have to catch up on all of them now. What's so interesting is when they come out, like it's about events that have happened like a while back.
That's not what it's about.
Okay.
It is about the Bobby and Whitney relationship between Hubble and Donahue. Okay. And it is about trying to figure out, are the coaches annoyed? Are they not annoyed? Is this why Chalk and Bates won nationals? Like, are judges annoyed by this subconsciously? What's going on here? Is this is this all part of like everything going on?
And this plans to go through the Olympics?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I
didn't know if it follows the whole season and would finish.
Oh, the producers really love to show Hubble and Donahue arguing in practice, and they give them a lot of material.
Yeah, I bet.
And then Hubble and Donahue's goal is to beat Papadakis and Cizeron, which I didn't realize.
Oh, that's my goal too. Yeah, so.
Which I think it's important to dream big and to work big and to set goals and to work towards it. It's another thing to hear it verbalized, and you're like, oh, wait, do they think that? What? You're trying to...
That's an inside motivator.
So, but if you're going to do something, why not reach for the top? So you kind of see both sides, but it's interesting to hear it verbalized. It does like shock you.
Yeah.
Where, and maybe, you think about how Hubble and Donahue have fallen short in competition. You're like, is this good for them? Is this bad for them? Is this a strategy that is in reaction to something? Yeah, it's just interesting to watch. Everyone has opinions on it, so they are.
And let's say what's interesting about like this scenario is if there was more time between Four Continents and Olympics, would that help someone like a Hubble and a Donahue right now to go there, get one more outing, work out the kinks one more time, especially without a Grand Prix final, just for more mileage? I never understand. Like, it seems that some people, and we'll talk about it more specifically with people at Four Continents, who does better with more mileage and who kind of should have reserved it and kept it fresh, maybe.
My gut with Hubble and Donahue says one more competition isn't going to matter.
Okay.
They're as ready. It's up to them, and it's up to the training they do and the work they do mentally. Until then, like, what more competition? They have so much experience behind them at this point. This is it, right? And I don't know. I would just don't know what is.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
I don't know. That's and I think for some of these teams, I mean, I think for someone like Kazuki Tomono, this is a huge moment for him back on the world stage against Jun Hwan, and their matchup with someone so even was very interesting to watch. And I was curious watching this, if you think, I know he's the second alternate for Japan, but do you think that Kazuki Tomono should be the first alternate for Worlds? And I doubt that they would switch it, but thinking that, there's a good chance that Yuzuru Hanyu could win or finish second at the Olympics and not go to the World Championships. In that scenario, I think Kazuki Tomono has had the kind of season where you talk body of work. To me, he's my first alternate. But
I'm so embarrassed to say right now, I'm not remembering who the first alternate is.
I believe it's Miura. Yeah.
That is an interesting thing. I mean, great skater with tremendous speed and presence and all this sort of stuff. However, I am more taken with Kazuki Tomono, just skating in general.
Because Kazuki's short wasn't as good at Japanese nationals, is my recollection of this.
But it was lovely here.
Yes, here it was lovely, but when they picked the team, it wasn't as lovely, perhaps. And I do think he gave away some points here where he could have won this championship, obviously. Even with the mistakes he had on the jumps, he had a level 2 step sequence and a level 3 spin. And it was so close, especially in the free skate. And you're like, oh, that level 2 step, that was not it. That was not it.
But let's talk this out. This caller here was was brutal on the step sequences, and perhaps in a good way, but I felt like suddenly we had a Shinamano of step sequences among us here.
Yes.
And he really nailed almost everyone with very low levels on it. And I'll forever remember Yuka Sato talking to you when you were like, oh, Yuka, I just love your footwork. She's like, please, it would be worthless in IJS because it doesn't hit any of the bullet points. It was just flashy, wonderful, and entertaining, God forbid. So I was curious if you could remind us what some of those bullet points were, because so many of the top men, Jun Hwan included in the short, could have possibly broken 100 if he got a couple more levels.
Sure. Okay. So there are 4 features in a step sequence, and the number of features corresponds to the levels, right? So you have minimum. So the first is variety. So, and this is interesting because this is the tough one to get, right? You can have minimum variety for level 1, simple variety for level 2, variety for level 3, or complexity of difficult turns and steps throughout. So that's a little ambiguous, but you kind of know what they're going for there, right? 2 is rotations in either direction. So you have to spin counterclockwise and clockwise. I hope I did that, but yes. Counterclockwise and clockwise when you are doing with the full body rotation for at least 1/3 of the pattern in each direction. So if you do 2/3 of the pattern on your good side, you have to do 1/3 of the pattern on your bad side.
And isn't this something we've caught a couple times in like Trusova programs, for instance?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not looking at her pattern right now, but in certain programs there are skaters that only turn in one direction. They don't do enough on the other side, and they don't get that level. Absolutely. I'm not calling out Trusova sports room.
No. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not looking at her pattern right now. Don't put me to the fire. Okay. It'll be a headline tomorrow, and then. Alexander Vadinin compared me on his Facebook post to Bayul and Grishuk this week. I was like, what? You're going off of headlines that are like...
Right. You've been called worse.
Yeah. And then someone in the comments wrote, well, prostitutes do what they're paid for. I was like, oh my God. Like, this is coming out of like people when they take something... regardless, just weird, surreal life. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was not talking about Trusova step sequence.
Correct.
Okay. The other thing, so you have to do for 1/3 of the step sequence. Remember, you have to turn in the opposite direction. So think about opposite foot, which foot you like. So it would be like if you're jumping your way for 2/3, then you have to jump the opposite way. I know people get really triggered if someone says the wrong way, by the way. So but every skater typically has a better side that you're more comfortable in for your turns. And it can be turn by turn, but you have to do both sides. That's more challenging here. You have to use of body movement for at least 1/3 of the pattern. So that's upper and lower body. That gets when we see like lunges or some of the unicam arm movements going on. That's why we see a lot of the sweeping and things happen where they try to show different levels of body movement. And then the hardest part of the footwork is you have to have 2 combinations of 3 difficult turns on different feet executed with continuous flow within the sequence. So this means that you have to do like 3 turns in a row on one foot. And that you have to do later in the footwork, you have to do it on the other foot. So only the first combination on each foot can be counted, which is a little bit of a difference in the rule. These are called clusters. And we used to see before, like when Medvedeva was on the Junior Grand Prix, she had 4 clusters in her footwork sequence. In case she missed one, she could get another. And it was just like genius. So you have to have variety, rotation, body movement, and the clusters. So in Kazuki, he probably missed a cluster, and then maybe they either didn't like his rotation or they didn't like his body movement, I would think, for it, or maybe they didn't like.
I mean, that's what's so fascinating to me, because how much of this is choreographically, instructed, and how much of that is just based on the performance on the day. Like, I would assume that most of the choreographers have aimed for a level 4, and the clusters are worked in, and the variety is worked in.
What if you miss the cluster on your weaker foot, and that's also part of the rotation on your bad side? Could you potentially not get credit for the rotation and for that?
Or, like you're saying, there was a method to that madness with Medvedeva, is just throw in everything in excess and you're bound to
that was
eventually
different because
get-
now it's only the first one in the foot. So you don't get to have
I
like
see.
the Todd axle, the Todd Eldridge axle passes built in where you're doing that. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah.
That explains a lot because the caller really went in on these. And unfortunately, there's no real way to see what they cited.
Well, it
right?
would be great if they put the letters next to it, right?
Right.
For
like in dance when it says YNYY.
yeah. Like I think they could do that. It could be like footwork, VR, BS, you know, and you're like, oh, or BC, you know, and you're like, oh, okay, like got it.
Well, it gives us a way to sort of also hone in on this step in a different way if we understand what we're following for, because again, IJS misses the point for me in the step sequence because all of that rotation, does that fit the music at the time? 9 times out of 10, it doesn't, because you're trying to do too many things that aren't musically informed, but are level informed.
Why Benoit gives the same moves to everyone so that they can hit those body movement.
And he's not alone. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
So shall we continue with the men's?
Yes. So Jun Hwan, great short program here.
Beautiful.
I would have actually had Kazuki ahead of Jun in the short. I have to
Okay.
just my personal opinion as one judge on the spectrum of life, right? That's my personal opinion, and but it was
There's
very
something
close.
very
Some judges did, by the way,
about Jun Hwan's short, and I love Kazuki, especially the free skate. But there is something. This short program in particular, one of my favorites this season, the Fate
I like it.
one. Yeah, it's very, I don't know, and it's very musically reflected in the choreography, which I absolutely adore. And there's just a beautiful, breezy, lyrical quality to all of it. I really like it.
The US judge went with Jun. So did the Korean, you know. The Russian judge went with Jun. The Bulgarian judge went with Kazuki. The Japanese judge went with Jun, which was interesting.
Playing nice in case they had to pull out the stops for the free. Yeah, okay.
I don't know, that's just like interesting how that happened. I preferred Kazuki, but again, they both got level 3 step sequence. So again, the caller, so tough. But in the components, you know, the Mexican judge really went lower on Kazuki's components as compared to Jun Hwan's. I don't like the color of Jun Hwan's gloves, and he's wearing flesh-colored gloves.
We noticed them, yeah.
But they're like flesh-colored gloves for Caucasian, and like they don't match the rest of his body, and they like are glaring. So if they could I would advise just doing gloves that are like, if he's going to do gloves, to extend whatever color your sleeve is and just make it longer, because it's just really glaring when he's doing it. And it's like a weird color of beige on him.
And he has this beautiful arm movement, so just to extend it even with the glove would be that much more effective, I would think. Why do you think some of these guys are wearing the gloves? Is it because they think they're touching down, or is it because of the grabbing of the blade?
It's the grabbing of the blade on the catch foot, and he does the back donut.
Yeah.
So your hand will be like all cut up. Gracie Gold wears them too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Which were also quite obvious, I felt, at nationals. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But she's at that stage in her career, she's done getting cut up. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I think both of theirs tend to be glaring. And I think that it could just look more refined. You know, Johnny Weir used to have the gloves, but he had like the costume, and it would even, like, if it was black, and have like the white through to the fingertip, and it just extended his arms. And I never minded his gloves as opposed to like Urmanov gloves, which were distracting.
Yes. I was curious what you were expecting from Tomoki here. Because this was his nationals, right? Like, so I didn't understand.
Historically, Tomoki has done well at nationals and or 4 continents. However, in the last 2 years or so, haven't you just gotten the vibe that with Tomoki and Camden and these boys from Colorado, are just middling and it's not happening. Camden, I was surprised because he just did well at nationals, but maybe that took all of his emotional energy out of him and he didn't have it in him to go for it again. You know, when you expend everything, sometimes another competition, you're just not mentally there.
Well, even for Camden, the free skate here seemed, again, more promising than his free skates had been before nationals. But again, there's something unorganized about it. It seems chaotic to miss a flip and then go land a Lutz right afterwards beautifully, to miss the axel and then go land the axel combination so beautifully, and to do the quads in the beginning of the free and then turn around and start. It just seems like haphazard.
Everything at nationals, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like I just
it was beautiful at nationals,
but it looked like it took everything from him to do it, right?
Yeah,
maybe it was too soon and he just wasn't up, right? And in that situation, but for some skaters, you know, because Camden's been very inconsistent this season and in recent years, and perhaps that's confidence and everything. I heard he was training pretty well. Tomoki, I heard, was training okay, right? Had COVID before nationals. He's just, he's fallen off in the last couple of years in terms of having steady momentum. One of the things about Tomoki is that he's historically done well in like January, and then we think he's gonna have a great season the next year, and then in the fall, he falls way behind, right? And then he has to build up again. And then there were problems with his programs and problems with his costuming. It just doesn't seem like these boys are all in. Like it just seems like whoever is directing them, it does not seem like these boys are like whipped into shape and ready to go.
Well, and like you're saying, I remember when Four Continents was in Anaheim in 2019, and that was part of the Tomoki momentum time. He had done well at nationals. He backed it up at Four Continents, which can also, being so close to nationals, there is this sort of prove it mentality. Either prove it you were wronged at nationals, or prove it that you were worthy of what you received at nationals. But yeah, like you say, then the momentum just goes all awry between that time and the next season. However, I think this is
good, right? Like Tomoki? Sometimes you can be on a wave and you're just riding that wave to the next event.
Yeah, but it's something between something in the summer would always sort of dislodge, because then when we would come back for the Grand Prix, then it was sort of messy again. And you were like, oh, well, no, now we don't consider you a factor, when I really thought he was like slotted to be that next person for us. And
it's how he fell off. It's how he fell off with the judges. I actually was surprised to see him here. He would not have been my selection if I were picking the team, and this is just my opinion, but having seen the way his career has gone, it wouldn't have been my vote. I would have voted to send Yaro, even with the mishap on the boots that happened to Yaro. But you have to wonder, when something like that happens and Yaro didn't have citizenship before, right? So he doesn't have this long history with coaches and judges in the US that obviously Tomoki and Camden and other skaters do. And they also train in Colorado so they can see them practice more. Yaro's coming in as an outsider, right? And I think that that's always harder in this situation. You're coming in from another country. We don't know you. We only have seen you limited times. We know that you're a good jumper, but you've also had a career history of inconsistency that's been glaring. And though it's gotten a lot better, you showed up at nationals and then, I don't know, like the eyelet broke off of his boot, I think. I don't know. We never got like the full Andrea Joyce story on that. But whatever happened to his boot, the whole, his coach wasn't there to advocate for him and to push for him. So you think, oh man, I would have gone with Yaro though, looking at, wait, Yaro's going to be around next season and he's got like the big quad jumps. But
what about, I'm forgetting now, I believe his name is Liam. Is that the
Liam
young man and senior man that I was like, wow, lovely. I'm obsessed with this skating.
Lovely.
It's great.
Yes.
Would this not have been an opportunity to send someone young for experience like that?
It could. I thought that maybe it was one competition rung too high for him. Like maybe like a junior worlds would be great. And then next year to go for the Four Continents. So it is a big step up, right? But I don't know. I think we keep sending out the same boys in our second tier.
And we get the same results. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same Jimmy Ma included. Yeah.
Well, Jimmy Ma, it's disappointing because you think Jimmy Ma had so many bright spots this season early on, and then kind of lost momentum. I think he obviously earned his spot here. He did well enough at nationals and certainly did well in the fall to earn his spot here. But he has had some moments at his bigger opportunities at some of these senior B events where he then turns around and didn't do well. And this is, you know, not his best competition, but I think he definitely earned his spot at Four Continents based on the season that he had. So I wasn't surprised to see him here, but I think for Jimmy, it'll be interesting to know what happened because he was so brilliant in the fall. Did he give too much then? You know, this is all about peaking. These guys are doing so many quad jumps and everything is hard, and confidence and all sorts of things. So I think it has to be hard, especially when you know that you're on a team or in a field where you have Nathan and Vincent and Jason and Ilya, and you're like, wait, where do I fit in? Where's my motivation? And do you lose motivation at certain weeks or times? Because I mean, think about it, for Jimmy Ma, like, he's not headless. He knows like it's going to be really tough to break in that top three. And then people start talking about body of work and selection criteria, and you're like, wait, I'm so far behind the 8 ball. Could I even catch up? You know,
but again, if maybe even the goal had always been to medal at Four Continents. I mean, he was far from it here, you know, like a solid 25 points or something, but a goal like that could have been more motivating, perhaps.
Yeah, I just think it's hard for some of these skaters too. Like, you start to get older towards the end of your career, and then I'm sure there are so many mind games going on with what's happening and what is my potential. And I think it's easy to, I think it's one of those things where going from nationals to Four Continents, I think that if you even have like a little bit of doubt about like your future or your career or anything, it's not going to go well. It's so quick after nationals to come down and to get back up and to travel that many hours and everything. It's tough. So for Kawamura, what'd you make of him? So he's a great jumper, Jonathan.
And so fast.
Yes.
Like really hurdles himself into those jumps.
But you know, his body is stiff, right? And that helps with the jumping. But then in terms of the spinning and the presentation, it's weak, and there's maybe not the I don't see the potential. Okay, I don't think that Kawamura, I would love to be wrong, but when I look at him, I'm like, oh my God, we are going to talk about his lack of presentation and his horrible spins his entire career. This is how this is going to go. This is how this is going to go. He is going to wow us in the jumps, and we're going to be like, oh my God, get him in a yoga class, get him to ballet. What is happening? Like, at least
Sena Miyake's giving us a major death moment.
Great death moment. We love a death on the ice. Yes.
It's like, okay, all right.
Yes. So, my God, I'm getting texts being like, is there a skating lesson episode this week? Oh my God, yes. So what do you think of Brendan Carey? He has been around for a while. I thought that he did much better than I expected.
Especially in the short program. That was a really lovely moment. And to see him in that final group after so many years of Four Continents was lovely. It was lovely. And I think did what he needed to, right? To see him at the Olympics. So
yeah. And Mikhail Shaderov from Kazakhstan had the
interesting.
Second
yes, he was an interesting jumper to me. It was so clean and so lovely and had more than one. And I just feel with a different federation, we'd probably be seeing a bigger push for him right now.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately for the Canadian men, they're also in an interesting situation where I know Joseph Van has had a lot of injuries, but, you know, besides, you know, we talk about Keegan and Roman and, you know, Nam, but underneath then, you know, Joseph Van has been there for a while, and he's always been one that we see such brilliant things on Instagram, and he is such a lovely skater, but then it doesn't always materialize. And I think injuries have been a big part of his career. We see, you know, Conrad Orzel, who not the best with presentation and not the best competitor, perhaps, does a lot of quads again. And then we see Corey, Circelli, who was on the Junior Grand Prix, moving up here. And it looked like he's in that stage of getting experience where this is all, he's
like trying the harder material now. Yeah. And just sort of getting the mileage on it. Yeah. Just needs.
He looks like someone that needs to compete a lot to get that mileage. And then, I wouldn't be surprised if in a year or two we have a different kind of conversation about him, as a skater and what is going on. But, it's similar. I think he improved, he looked so good last year during quarantine. He was one of the skaters that really did well at those virtual events. And then I think this year, getting back into competition, I think missing the international events last year had to be harder for someone like him, who was really relying on going to Junior Worlds, going to and getting all of that experience. So I think it's, he's probably not 100% happy with his season this year, but at the same time, experience and fuel for next year. So, yeah. But
and in its way, its own first pancake, right? With a season of triple axels and quad attempts,
Yeah, for sure. And I think, interesting. But how about the pairs event here? When our girl Deanna competes, Jonathan, I am riveted, okay? I am on the edge of my seat. It is event television.
Because she's on a real edge, that's why. Yeah.
On a real edge. Like, it is the best watching her. Like, it's the intensity, it's the passion.
The packaging is excellent for her,
Watching her when her partner with their dynamic, like even her with Nate and there's something about Nate that just cracks me up. And when he skated with Deanna, okay, so Nate is built like a 4x4. Let's just call a spade a spade. It seems like he was some sort of like lost on the way to wrestling practice and wound up in Jim Peterson's
athletic body, but perhaps for a different sport. Yeah.
Right? Like when you watch him skate, his center of balance is lower and very strong. And he's got these strong legs and strong arms and just no stretch. But and he's on 2 feet the whole time, but then he'll try to have these arm movements and you're just like, oh my God, how did he skate with Deanna? Like what was happening here? And the new guy is a much better match, but it seems interesting where Nate is always acting like he's doing the performance of his life, right? When he's skating with anyone, right? And I just remember
in my opinion, that put Nate on that Olympic team that year in Boston is they sold you a moment. If not a program. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. They did. And Nate is a good actor on the ice. Although sometimes I get the vibe that he really thinks it's the best performance of his life. Like remember when he and Deanna finished the Whitney Houston program at Nationals and Jim and Nate were jumping for joy. And Deanna was like, we're going to be fourth.
She knew it. She knew it. And like Megan with the points and the kiss and cry.
She needs to lie more. Our girl needs to lie a little bit more. Because she actually lost in some of the components to Nate, and I think it was wrong here. But when you look at it, they finished the and this is a lesson to all of us who are intense like Deanna, okay? They finished the program, and she's watching the Real Housewives. She's just reality television to watch her compete. She just wants it so badly, right? And you're just watching her do all of this and immediately I'm looking at her and you're also looking at them between the program because you could tell they're kind of communicating with each other and getting what that vibe is going on. It's riveting, right? But
well, what's interesting, I mean, so I could imagine going into this competition, they were aware they were competing against one another, Nate and Deanna. And
differently, I don't think it's that. Yeah.
But I'm sure I'd want to beat my old partner, kind of prove something, that's normal. I have to say because
originally she wanted to leave Jim and he didn't. It was Katie who convinced, because Katie and Nate are dating. And then when he was dating Katie and she wanted to leave Jim, that was different. So this all plays in.
Got it. It gets messy that way, doesn't it? Yeah. Yes. I mean, here's the thing, that Deanna and
I think it was clear if you watched the Nationals that Deanna and Jim weren't on the same page,
Yeah.
And perhaps two strong personalities.
And in the end, Deanna was right in her assessment about how things went and how they were scored, many ways.
Yes. But I think that there has to be maybe one leader, right? And that's
100%. Yeah. I mean, Nate's short program here was more elegant a program than I ever anticipated seeing from them. Now, the free skate was much more on brand with what I expect from them, and I thought they were scored appropriately, and Deanna above them. But I was surprised. I thought they made a valiant effort in sort of making it more aesthetically pleasing in the short.
But do you notice how many times Nate lifts, like does the mini lifts? Because usually when teams can't do transitions skating wise, they will put in the mini lifts. And the Mino and Sand School does this a lot. They know that maybe their skaters don't have the best skating skills, and Nate is like a crane. I mean, he is like a brick. He's like a Mack truck, and he is just lifting that girl. Okay.
Yeah. Brute force. Yeah.
Brute force. Okay. It's not pretty. It's not elegant, but like, my God, just look above him at the position and don't.
Yeah.
But it's funny to watch. Yeah. And to watch them back to back has to be, I mean, come on.
With the waves and the video and all that. Yeah. Now, what Deanna does do is they do have really lovely transitions and segueing moments. Their choreography is very interesting to me.
Yes.
Deanna's. It's just unlike other things we're seeing. It's a new set of transitions. It's a new set of lift entries.
Yeah.
Like
she goes for it all. She goes for it all. And I was talking to one person who thinks that they do so many good things, but he would take one or two out. And we kind of discussed this earlier in the season, just to let the highlights be the highlights so that the highlights don't compete with each other and then have it look like cluttered, even though everything that they're doing on paper is what you should be doing under the IJS and that's how the program should look. And actually the other programs are empty that they're competing against. But I think in terms of pairs and letting long edges and ride outs and things like that, that's, I think one thing for next year is maybe, when you watch them do the lifts, like their lifts are so interesting. And there's always like an exit and a this, but like I think sometimes when you add on those little things with the exit, instead of just putting it down and letting it flourish, it might cost them a GOE point, from a 4 to a
detracts from the highlight. Yeah.
Maybe at times just because something, isn't as smooth on the exit or something like that. I think that they should be getting +4s and +5s on all of their lifts. When you watch their lifts, they're the best in the competition. No one is going to beat those lifts, and they're probably the best in the world, right? And you watch them and you're like, oh, wow, okay. So they should be getting those points every time. They have to figure out the jumps, I think the entrances, and getting those, figured out for next season. But I thought overall they've improved a lot from last year and the season before to this year. So I think for next year, it'd be really interesting when you're like, oh, wow, they're going to be against Evelyn and Trent next year all the time.
Right.
What did you make
of that's it. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Again, like we were talking about, these Olympic 4 continents, it becomes like a barometer. Did every nationals and federation make good choices or bad choices for the Olympics this year? So obviously, everyone going in is watching Evelyn and Trent. Are they going to prove themselves that they should have been at the Olympics? And they did skate a clean short program, which is very commendable. However, everyone suddenly is now thinking, oh, look, they skated clean again. See, they should have been at the Olympics. But I think it's important to know that they did skate clean, and yet their score was rather low, despite that clean skate. Just again, going back to if the real barometer is who's going to be the bigger point getter at the Olympics, emotions aside, I still think Canada made the right choice.
Well, it's, just because you're doing the same elements doesn't mean that you're doing them the same way, right? And I think when you look at, it'd be interesting to look at Deanna's throws with Max and then look at Katie's throws with Nate. They're complete, but they're very small when Nate and Katie do them, but they are complete. But are you going to say that that's worth the same grade of execution as the other throws? I'm not going to say that, right? And I think that you start to get into quality differences. And some of the things I think that Trent and Evelyn do, I don't think they're at as high of a level. I also thought her—
And not so difficult, like a throw triple toe loop. you know, compared to everyone else's flip and lutz. It's difficult, and the energy was heavy.
Listen, Elena Belova did it in Calgary, and it was fabulous, but it still wasn't enough to beat Ekaterina Gordieva. And right. Belova did it with a hole in her leg and gangrene.
I was just gonna say, did she have like half a foot missing for it or something? Yeah, like, oh my goodness, insane. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that was, yes. And look about it, when Miska Chunuk and Dmitriev did the throw triple toe, it's a throw that tends to be smaller right. and not as big and nice. And right. look at their program. It was not as big and nice. So, right.
Yeah, so I mean, and unfortunately the free, I don't know if the successful short irked them in some way or what happened, but obviously it didn't go the way they wanted. In my opinion, they could have been easy silver medalists here, but
I think they have more, at this point of the season, it looks like they have more consistency than Vanessa and Eric, although we saw Vanessa and Eric competing on the after effects of COVID. So, but I do think that Vanessa and Eric have the opportunity to get more GOE points. And I do think that when you look at
PCS.
When I'm reading that Skate Canada criteria, when they're saying like, who could be in the field, I think that they're looking at the elements and like, whose GOE is going to get us where we need to go and whose components. And I don't think that Evelyn and Trent have that this season. Perhaps they can improve that for next season, and with added confidence of being, you know, a top pair in Canada that will come, should they come out of this the right way and, you know, moving forward in a positive momentum. But right. Or having something to prove and having that bitter energy driving them forward to greater heights. But I do think that there needs to be a little bit more quality and bigness in their skating. The same thing with Lou and Mitrofanov, I feel. Like,
this was like a Letov heavy event, right? Like they had everyone in every discipline doing all the things. And it's interesting because, and I felt this at Nationals, I know Megan was very excited about them, and at first I was sort of struggling to get on board and kind of see some of the things. They're very fast. They have very exciting moments, but something
they
again
have some
about
of the ugliest costumes in the short program we have ever seen.
To Britney Spears, I wasn't following at all. And this sounds silly, but that packaging would help me understand who they are. If they had like a streamlined look or something that gave them this aesthetic that I was like, oh, they are this kind of team and they do this kind of skating, because there's such... I
hate the pre-skate music. I hate it.
Yeah, it's something weird. Sometimes her jumps make me a little nervous, and sometimes it's a little two individuals as opposed to a team still at the moment. But I see much technical potential.
Yes.
Is how I'm going to word that. Yeah.
It was...
And the right winners here, I think 100%. Yeah.
Look, the US certainly needs them to continue next season, right?
It's true.
But they do need to work on their speed and the quality of some of their elements and getting bigger and having more impressive lifts and just more pizzazz. And
a kind of just a finisher. When we talk about the coaches that build such good basics, I mean, I think all their basics are fine. They just need the finishing.
It's funny.
And she could use a little more height.
Emily and Spencer have nicer skating skills, choreography, although Elegy for the Arctic, ooh, that's about global warming, right? That's like a nodding talking to us about global warming. And the music was kind of dull.
This would be a question for like a Megan or a somebody. Sometimes, and it's I try not to say stuff like this because I have not thrown women in the air to do triples, but some of his throw technique looked a little rough. He looked...
Sebastian's or Misha's?
Sorry, Chan and Hao.
Chan and Spencer, okay.
Yeah. I thought...
He was the star of that Misha G dance class that Alexa was hiding in the back of.
He moves beautifully. Yeah. Like he's got a thing. He's got an allure for sure in his movement. But something was very scary to me about their throws, and I didn't know if she was going up funky, or I think there's a technical thing that was happening on all of them that was sort of making me nervous for them. But I think if they sorted out, they're very engaging.
Her jumps can be scary under pressure.
Yeah.
In terms of the consistency. So I thought Audrey's jumps were under here, and that's why she fell on the second, and the first I thought on the south. But I think overall they've had a very consistent season, and were better here overall than they were at nationals. So
because they're using four continents for exactly what it can be used for in this moment, which is to let everyone know what happens in the next chapter.
yeah,
Because again, I don't know where our two Olympic pairs are going after this season, or even Brian, Jessica, and for how long. So I think that was such a clear statement.
But Audrey needs to go to an edge class for a couple of months and every day and really work on it. Yeah, because
and look each other in the eye and connect.
Yeah, I think all
wait, who was it? They need to go to coffee every week. What was the
John and Kyoko went to lunch.
Lunch,
they made
not
it known.
coffee.
So for people who are too young, during the early aughts and the late 90s, Kyoko Ina and John Zimmerman were two of the top US skaters who were put together, and they went to train with Tamara Moskvina, the legendary coach of Boykova and Kozlovsky, Misha Nagelyama.
Oh, that's who you led with. Tamara Moskvina, famous coach.
I'm trying to talk
Boykova.
to youngins who don't know. Okay, I'm trying to get a history lesson.
Amazing.
Even though Russians love to say that, they love to spread, Americans are afraid of Russians and those things. Tamara Moskvina was based in Hackensack at the Ice House when it first opened because they had problems with the ice at the Ability Sports Palace and it was getting redone, and the economic conditions as well as skating was super popular and profitable here. Even though Tamara says skating is about mafia is about money, and what money is there in skating? There was a lot of money at the time.
There was, yeah.
Was marketing her team and getting them ingratiated to the U.S. audiences, and we covered them a lot on TV. But when they actually moved here, and Kyoko and John Zimmerman trained with them. And Kyoko was known for being very intense. John, the coach of James and Cypress, was known for being kind of the hot mess of the team, or the more laid back one. And he would often miss his jumps, and Kyoko had zero presentation. She now works under Mitch Moyer for the pairs. Now, their last season, it just became known that they freaking hated each other, right? That they just could not get along. And Tamara was like, we made them go to lunch once a week. And they talk about everything. And it was in every article about them. And every time they were on TV, Susie Wynn, who covered the Grand Prix events that Dick and Peggy didn't go to, used to be like, yes, we're seeing such improvement. They go to lunch once a week this season and they talk about everything. Such a Moskvina move. She's brilliant. She's like, what's the bullet point? What's the soundbite that lets everyone know they're actually She probably was brilliant to actually make them go to lunch together. And they finally skated well at the last moment at the Olympics, but they hadn't skated like that enough times before those Olympics.
Yeah, so that one lift, that was a moment in that Olympics.
They finished fifth. They probably should have been fourth. Anyway, that's the
story for another day. Yeah.
Story for another day, but definitely was a moment in time about, yes, they went to lunch. They're having lunch. Yes.
It should be, it's like a skating lesson thing. It's like they should go to lunch together because it's clear
I believe
people can't stand each other.
I think that both Boston teams need to go to lunch together. That's what I think.
I agree because I miss that connection. I don't know that they dislike one another, but I don't sense.
Well, we heard that one of the teams argues a bit. Between the two, one of them argues a bit, and I think they should go to lunch.
Yes.
Olga, send them to lunch, okay? And they could burn your husband's Boston hat, the black one. And yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. And cut Jimmy Ma's ponytail. Yes, all the things we need to do. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And stop having young Gabby Izzo skate to old AF Glenn Close, Sunset Boulevard.
No, it's has been diva music. Yeah.
Oh my God, it makes me think that she's 75 with all the rouge.
Puts on the turban and the caftan, just skating
we can say
around.
That, right? It's the end of the season. My God, that program has aged her. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Your program is great, but when she does Sunset Boulevard, I'm like, girl, she is not 75. Okay, it is. She is not ready for
choosing a washed-up character. What's gonna go on here?
But I think Mark Mitchell picked that program and they kept it. Yes.
I'm trying to think of a picnic reference, but I can't come up with one. Okay.
Now we really got to go.
Okay.
In this summer. We'll go, Jonathan. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
See you there. Okay.
Oh man. But yeah, I thought the pair event fun here overall. Yeah. Now you were really having but you were really having a moment during the ice dance event. You were talking about real free dances and real dancing, and I was like, Jonathan's having a moment.
Yes, I was having a moment on that like Saturday morning or whenever it was. I just felt that the Parsons free dance, which is so modern dance oriented, it's not the same formula we see, you know, in other places. And again, I have missed a Marina Zaeva free dance. Like we were so inundated for so long with it that, you know, it sort of plateaued for me. But to both the rhythm dance for Daisuke, which I think is that, and the French rhythm dances get it right. Those are the best rhythm dances for me in construct that work the best. And that free dance, I mean, it's a kind of dancing on the ice we're not seeing from anyone this season. And it takes me back because I was like, more of that, please. Yeah.
He's dressed like Charlie White and like doing his Marilyn Charlie fantasy is what I feel like when he's skating.
And I'm here for it. Okay. I'm thrilled to see it at Worlds.
Yes.
I hope they clean up their rhythm dance issues.
I love to watch his skating. I love to watch his passion for skating. He is the most fun to watch. He tends to free skate some of the ice dance movements. His posture is kind of bent forward, which has to do with the lack of a height difference between the partners. So that is glaring. And
the rhythm dance glitches, they gotta just take care of that, because I think the world wants to give them some credit. Like at Worlds, I think they could make a little moment, but they're just gonna have to go clean on that.
Yeah. And so when they lift, do you notice that like they try to find the easiest workarounds for the lifts?
Momentum based. Yeah.
Because of the lack of height difference. That said, I love to watch them, but I can understand why Tim Coletto is going to the Olympics when you watch it based on how the cookie crumbled at nationals. And then you're like, okay. And then this rhythm dance mishap, I was like, well, yes.
Yeah, again, because it's remarkable what they've done. We always talk about new partnerships. It's not just a new partnership. It's a new discipline for him. I mean, of course, it was going to just take time, but it's just the material in and of itself that is so remarkable. And props to the Parsons for that free dance, for going what was just a little bit different. It would have been easy to do a generic lyrical program in the vein of the French or something like that. And instead they're trying something funky that took me a while. When I saw it live in Canada, it's a little slow. I was a little distracted by the outfits, all this sort of stuff. And then at Nationals, it really captured me, and they totally backed it up here. And I think they're another one that sort of set the tone to say, we're here, we just won this, easy peasy, get used to it, I felt.
My worry for them is that in the politics of ice dance, you need to be from the right school with the right focuses and the right momentum and the right guidance. And I think they're on the leading edge of the Maryland school, and they're the farthest they have gone. So I worry that the lack of historical experience and relationships for this Maryland school could hold them back. If they decide to stay loyal to their coaches, it could help their coaches in the long term in the US. But does it hurt them in the short term getting their results internationally?
Have you seen, you know so much about the jockeying that can be done in ice dance. Is there jockeying that can be done by bringing in the right choreographer, even if they don't leave their coaching team?
Well, look, I think that when you become USA #1, there's always a push behind you, and people start to look and develop relationships with your coaches more favorably because you become more of a priority and there's more of an investment in you and everyone gets to know each other better, right? Yeah. And their coaches have been around having teams climb. It's not like they're brand new on the scene. However, there is that extra level of expertise when you have one, knowing what sells and what doesn't sell and what's creative and what are the good risks to take and where the improvements need to be. I think with them, their actual skating glide could improve. That's one thing that they could have over another team. You felt one way at Nationals, I felt the other. I felt Hawaii and Baker had the skate of the night. And I thought that material was unbeatable. The free dance. I just thought, wow. Although this free dance I find extremely creative. I find the music a little dull to it.
Yeah, it's a bit more subdued. Yeah. But I don't know.
And the costume the wrong color. And this,
not for him, but her that earth tone thing. It's just, and again, it's not to harp on an outfit, but it distracts. It doesn't enhance this cool thing they're
splitting hairs in ice dance, and they were splitting hairs to a team that had a girl with a concussion and a busted knee, right? And you're like, and you're that maybe maxed out, and right. You're like, wait, but why were you fourth instead of third? And I think that that's what you kind of have to
because I wasn't on the panel. But and I love Jean-Luc and Caitlin. Like
these are both great teams. These are both great teams, and we're not right.
Yeah.
But you talk about, but then people also get sick of a certain aesthetic and school. And is 11 teams too much for a school? Is that going to hurt you in the future because you maybe just got too big, right? There's also that.
I just see someone like Marina who can offer such brilliant programs just kind of hanging around.
Okay, yes. So yes, however, Marina has a style, right?
Yeah. Do you think it would work for them?
You know how Mino and Sand always did short programs and programs that felt like it was like about their wedding? When they skated to Pomp and
just
Circumstance.
Like Jennifer Robinson, yeah.
Right, like their Blue Danube and their Pomp and Circumstance. And she was always in white or cream and he was always in a tux. Don't you feel like Marina is kind of like the Russian version of that? Like,
she's an elevated version of that. There's a nostalgia there, an 18th century glam.
The Ave Maria, the Scheherazade, like it's all just so, right? And then as soon as Tessa and Scott got to Marie France, and we even saw them do Justin Bieber and Prince, it was like, oh my God, thank God they've gotten some freaking edge to them. Like it almost gets too saccharine. And it's fun to watch Daisuke do the old classic in the classic way because we haven't seen it. But when we saw it so much, it was like when we saw the Shibutani version, you're like, oh, enough.
Yeah, sometimes it read as old-fashioned back to back. Yeah, it was, but now it's almost this like trendy, nostalgic version of old-fashioned because no one is doing anything remotely classical at the moment.
But you know what happens in skating? One person does something and the next season everyone does it, right? And there's that. I don't know.
And right now we're still stuck in lyrical, emotional love with a ballad. So we're just so in that moment for me.
It does seem like Montreal is moving away from that as their only aesthetic. Like they gave us circles and then they're moving away from it, right? But everyone else is still Amber Glenning the circles out of it, right? And you're like, oh my God, please stop. Please stop. You don't even understand.
That was so 2 seasons ago. Yeah.
5 seasons ago.
Yeah.
5. Okay.
Yeah.
5. That's how much these things persist, right? So, and we all want to do it. But at the same time, I think then you go from circles, which was already maybe 2 seasons in of that style, right? Then you're getting Elegy for the Arctic, where it's like, we're just trying to find another Anadi song. It's like, we need music. He is the go-to, and let's find it. And you're like, enough. He's had his moment. Right. Let's go and do something.
And again, his kind of music is so ambient. It's not full of personality and journey. It's just kind of vibing. And I don't want to vibe along for 4 minutes in one mood with an ice. I want to be taken on a journey that just takes my breath away. It's so beautiful.
Well, I had asked JoJo if she would do a choreographer program to a certain piece of music, right? and Jojo Starbuck, and she's like Mother Earth, right? She's just like so lovely and nice. And she was like, you have too much personality to skate to something like that. It was just the way she said it. I was like, oh my God. Like,
but why mute it? Why mute it? Because so many people don't have that kind of personality. You know what I mean? I applaud her for saying that.
She just
like
she just
go in
it.
the easiest door. Yeah. Amazing.
It was like Sandra, but with like a punch to it. You're like, oh, yes, okay, yes, all right. She was right, okay. I picked music with more personality, all right? So, but I do think with some of these pieces, yes, it's the ambient, we're moving away from it. I hope that Green and Parsons do something completely different in terms of music next year. I think the Prince to this was a good elevation, although the Prince gave them such personality and performance. And hopefully next year they can do something completely different. Maybe classic.
Yeah, they showed us soft, this kind of lyrical soft. Now show us something else. Because again, what I fear is that people find the success, so then they just start repeating the season that started the success. But
I just worry that she's going to grow too tall for him, and that's like my worry when I see her.
Yeah.
It's not her fault, but
no,
it's just this. We need this partnership size to like really. We need to hang on, Jonathan. Okay.
Exactly.
Stop growing. Stop. Okay.
But I mean, if Jean-Luc and Caitlin stay in, like this next year's nationals will be very interesting for dance.
You think they'll stay in?
I don't think so at all. I think it's Green and Parsons for the taking. Yeah. And that Ian Somerville, is Ian his first name?
Yes.
Mr. Somerville.
He's so talented.
He's so talented. It was nice to.
He loves an unbuttoned shirt blowing in the distance. It's like that Kurt Browning program that he did at the Rock and Roll Championships, like
that's right.
by the group called Live, right, or whatever it was back in the day. Lightning Crashes, right? But he does that in every program.
Everybody's got to have a gimmick.
He skates with more abandon than his partner does. She seems like a personality mismatch in terms of skating style. So I think that they need to either
he steps up into that spotlight. Yeah.
I think that they need to either marry the two or consciously uncouple because it's just not the biggest match, but and I'm very curious what's going to happen with Tanith and Charlie and Greg Zerline and this school that is, forming that they're a part of.
Because I'm intrigued with this Ponomarenko situation, because for a while they were easily besting Green and Parsons when they were newer. And I was looking again, not just for the Batman costume, but I think that like, in general, he's center of gravity, and Scott was with them at the boards, and Scott and Tessa, Meryl and Charlie, they all had this like rod up their back in a good way, like of this sort of like up hoisted sternumy kind of posture, and I almost feel that that's trying to be given to Ponomarenko, and it gets him a little out of his knees. I don't know. I want him to be lower in the ice or something. It just seems like they're going for like this old-fashioned approach, but I want something earthier and edgier from them, because I feel they're at a tricky crossroads and they need to surge forward quickly if they're going to remain relevant.
No, I liked seeing Scott in the Kiss and Cry. He looked very young and very handsome. He like aged in reverse in retirement. And remember how we would see him like with like long hair, rebel Scott, and then before the big events, he would go back to like clean cut Scott, right? Yeah. We would watch it, those two more. He looked like he was like younger and more clean cut as a coach, although the tie was like the wrong size and maybe the wrong tie for what he was wearing, but he looked like $1 million besides that. Ponomarenko, I have heard, has an injury that will likely need surgery, and that's part of.
I see that. Okay, I didn't realize that. Unfortunate.
That hasn't been like published anywhere, but that I've heard that. So
okay.
I would not be shocked if they were a bit stronger next year if the ankle surgery goes well.
Okay.
So I think that would make sense.
Well, then that could also explain the shift up in the body or something. Okay. Okay.
But I do think that the US dance, it does get a little scary when you're like, wait, we're having these teams retire, and is the next generation adequately prepped? We have teams coming up, but are they the right people together? There's talent. are they all with the right coaches and the right partners? And there's a lot of, it's a big legacy now. The US was, people don't realize who are new to the sport. The US dance used to be considered, how do I put this politely? Like 3 times worse than the way that American pairs have been discussed and I think that American pairs have been discussed better in the last few years than they were discussed for a long time. The dance event used to be considered the dinner break of nationals. It used to be considered like they didn't have a shot in hell at any of.
And usually we were only sending one team, maybe a luxurious 2. Yeah.
So it is a little frightening since 2005 on to have all of these medals and all of these great teams, and you're like, okay.
But don't you think this is one of the disciplines that will leave the largest hole at the top after this Olympic season? I feel like almost all of these top contenders will disappear. So I think this whole B group takes a shift up.
Yeah, but are they as competitive as the other ones? Who knows?
Right.
It's also a big opportunity for Russia to push its way to the top.
Right.
In a bigger way than they are now.
With my favorite junior team that we'll talk about tomorrow.
Yeah. but it's a huge shift, and not knowing everyone that's going to stay in, it's a huge opportunity. So yeah.
Jeffrey Chen, that was a real moment to watch him live. Am I missing up? There's so many names swirling through my head right now. Yes.
With Christina, yes.
Yes, gorgeous skating. Yeah, so there's some interesting stuff coming up.
Yes, but are they ready to move right ahead to the medals?
Right. Does there need to be a group between those two? Yeah.
Or a year or two, but that's what we're talking about. So it's a scary time when you've had this pipeline, and the US had it. Remember, like Kimmy won Worlds in 2006, and then the next year it just
hurdled.
And it could happen. Just anyway, we've got anxiety. Okay,
it's ice dance. It's ice dance. Yeah, anything is possible.
It can happen. Yeah. The other Canadian teams here, there were some ones moving up. There was like a champagne nightgown situation happening. Lots of things going on. A nice Australian team skating to "Ain't Nobody Love Me Better." Right?
Well, you even watched the Australian dance teams. I have to say, I missed some of those rhythm dances, if I'm being honest.
Sometimes we surprise you. Okay.
Okay. I do like that. Okay.
Yeah, but how about the ladies here? So we did see the top Korean ladies here, who we will be seeing at the Olympics. A little bit of a.
Dave, what is going on? Would you have done that? Who does this benefit by sending these 3 Korean ladies here?
Well, it benefits them in the ISU points rankings, but it does not benefit them in the long run. Perhaps if you're going to, okay, I have a couple of thoughts. Are they strategizing for success this season? We've also, the Korean Federation has been criticized for not strategizing and over-competing their athletes.
Because just as a quick insert here, not only did they have their nationals when we covered it, but they had the ranking competition before the nationals, and now they're all going to 4 continents, and then they go to.
And there's a variant hanging around, and there's right. It's hardcore in Korea. Okay, we are making those girls consistent. Unfortunately,
we're not.
Well, remember what happened at Worlds last year when Yelim Kim looked like a sure bet for a top 5 finish until she wasn't, right? Until the last moment. Like she looked like all of a sudden she had this major step up, and then it looked like she ran out of gas at the last moment. What I've noticed is that it looked like a clear Young Yu and Yelim Kim 1-2 situation, and then you go to 4 continents and Haein Lee is the top finisher, and you're like, wait a second, this is not.
What does that do to Young Yu? First of all, with just fatigue and emotional fatigue, but what does it do to the mindset going into the Olympics? Again, is this someone who's now motivated to step up, or is this someone who's lost a bit of confidence now? And this,
and reputation.
The Young You triple axel, like where it was kind of gaining momentum in the beginning of the fall. Now I feel more than it is now. I felt it was more possible at other times in the past than it is now.
Her axel, and people may have
to a stop. Yeah.
To me, look at her edge and on the pattern on the way in. Her axle, it looks flatter and more diagonal than most.
Yeah. And it always seems to me like she's delaying. Like she lingers way too long.
It just doesn't look like it's on a curve. Like, I don't know. But who knows? It just, maybe it works for her. It just doesn't seem to have in competition. I don't know.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, Trustova also has a strange axle pattern that looks like it's not setting her up for success. So, but you know what? We live in a world where Valyeva does a triple axel with one arm. Okay, so anything is possible, Jonathan. Okay, like who technique?
Yeah. Try a triple on one foot.
And sometimes Valyeva does a triple axel that's amazing, but not using the left arm. Not really using that left arm.
Doesn't need it. No, she's left it.
But
it got stuck in the pretzel move in the opening. Yeah.
But it may not last next season, right? It may, because of the technical thing. The Young You, it's just always a little under, and you're like, wait. But I get the vibe that she's done a million repetitions on those jumps, and she's always had like the quad lots, so it's always like a little under. So I don't know. It's a little worrying in that sense, that because she can do the triple lats, triple toe, like beautifully, right? And she can backload elements and do them nicely. But I feel like her skating doesn't progress from year to year because we're still fighting the same battles on the axle and on the quad sow, and she's not
and that axle sets the mood for a program, and it kind of gets a little. The vibe is uneasy after the axle because she checks out a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas like it's interesting. Let's talk about now. We've always said Haein Lee on the show, and Estonia they say Haein Lee. They were announcing it as such. I don't know if someone wants to clarify that for us 100 times below. But what's interesting is she always captured my eye on the Junior Grand Prix when we were covering.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful skater. And when I was looking here. Now I want these 3 Korean skaters who have come so far technically, and they've come so far, the programs, I know they're a little generically lovely at the moment. Now I want this federation to bring in someone like a Lori Nickel, like the Chinese Federation did for their pairs, and just clean everybody up. Because Haein Lee is so right there. She's right there and just falls one not short of gorgeous to me. Like she just needs 1% more extension in each position and she's golden.
You know how this federation has like, this Koreans, they seem to have really, the coaches have seemed to really like learn how to like nail that triple lutz, triple toe combination.
Yelim Kim's triple lutz, triple toe deserves its own gold medal, correct.
Right. They need to do that with the quad toe, triple toe for the ladies, right? Like they're a quad toe, triple toe away from like really being in it internationally. Right now, they're a happy bronze medal, right? At a Grand Prix event. If they could do that, they could move up in the world. And I think that is kind of holding them back a little bit. They're all drowning in too much fabric and in too much of the Unikim imitation of the program style. And I love some of the music choices, but Les Mis.
Again, I'll always make the same joke. And it's so easy because skating keeps letting me make it. It's this story about oppression and poverty and revolution. And then here comes everyone in the most glitzy glam pageantry dress. And there's just a disconnect to it.
But how do you break through as a skater when you're in like 5, 6, 7 and you want to be 1, 2, 3? You have to be original. And they're inherently not being original by giving us everything that we've already seen and seen done better.
Yeah.
Because they're competing against the memory of an icon, right? And some of them have the same coaches at times, or the same technique, or the same spin variations, or right. And when we're watching it, we're like, it's not exciting. It's like you went from Peggy Fleming to Julie Lynn Holmes. It wasn't as exciting, you know, it just wasn't, it was lovely.
I think they have the capability. I think they possess, especially in a Haein Lee. I think 100% she can give us something mind-blowing. She just needs the right encouragement and the right person to sort of lead her to it.
Yeah.
So, but again, and they can still be lyrical pieces. They could still be gorgeous classical staples, but maybe just not the ones. There are so many. Why do we always use the same ones? that could really be a trendsetter in and of itself. Yeah.
And the lovely Mai Mihara winning here. You know, comparing the top ladies, why does Mai, you know, win? Because it's very close. Do the judges just respond to her joy? She has just looked so happy skating all season.
Hello, I respond to her joy. Like when she first came on the scene and won 4 continents in 2019 or whenever that was, it was lovely because you knew she was like a really good student. You got all your triples in. She always skated basically clean. Her inconsistency was never something you worried about with her, but it just sometimes was, again, kind of lovely. And the judges scored it as kind of lovely. And now that loveliness has been accompanied by a sheer joy, a joy at whatever journey she's been through that has brought her to this season. And 2 4th place finishes on the Grand Prix with big ovations in the audience. I know it doesn't seem to carry that same way on television for some. Some people are still in the, oh, I don't get her. I don't see her personality. She seems a little bland to me. But to me, that joy of skating, which is so absent from so many of our top competitors at the moment, is intoxicating to watch. Give her all the points.
Because watching, it looks like Yelim Kim has more speed and power, but
and maybe more rotation,
yes,
especially on the triple. Yeah.
But I don't necessarily feel that individual heartwarming love from Yelim. And if you're not going to have that, then I think you need a sense of drama, a musicality. It seems maybe a little bit more choreographed. And
yeah, because if so
but
now we're in the stands, you're going to see Yelim Kim's triple Lutz triple toe, and we're going to turn to each other and be like, that was excellent. That was so clean. Wow, that was so big, amazing. Mai's going to skate, and I'm going to have goosebumps, and I'm going to get emotional, and I'm going to love all of this. And to me, that's what the hell are we doing if we don't want that, in my opinion.
I love that she had a Dave Lee spin mishap at the end of like what was going on. Like, just loved it. Okay.
I know. I got nervous for her because I was like, "Oh dear Lord, if this is what you messed it up on, you know."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you saw. I mean, her coach could have been a little warmer, perhaps. I was like having a moment in the kiss and cry. It was all coming out, and the coach is like 6 feet away from her and just kind of looking at her. I was like, will you pat her on the back? Could somebody give her a hug? Like, dear Lord. But
this girl needs a hug. Give her a hug.
She has earned a hug. Yeah. So yeah, it was really lovely to see. That was a feel-good
I have
moment.
to say, Audrey Shin was lovely here. She's someone that has struggled with jump rotation due to a technical wrap that they are working to fix. I know. And I know that she's a really hard worker who her coach says loves to skate, and it comes through. He really likes coaching her. I watch her and think I enjoyed her performance here the most that I've enjoyed her skate ever. I think that she just has a little inner artistry that is starting to emerge. I think as the jumps become more technically sound. And it was a big step up over nationals where maybe she got a bonus of judging while, you know, being coached by Tammy Gamble when we watched the US Nationals. But here, she really delivered and stepped up. And I thought her warm-up at Nationals looked more like her competition here. So her jumps were more rotated in the warm-up, and under pressure got nervous and tight and under, and the jumps looked better here. The flip, not so much, but it looked better. And I thought that even the Alicia Keys Moonlight Sonata was just more enjoyable.
No, it wasn't. And here, let me tell you why. Everyone thinks I have a problem with this music because there's speaking over it. Oh, you wish the speaking was the worst part of this music. After her double axel, when she is doing a spin, and she's doing this spin beautifully, there is the most jarring, offensive, just key change out of nowhere, mid-phrase, that just tells me the team around it doesn't know some basics. I'm not talking about a highfalutin, oh, they should have done this with it. No, I mean, it was full blown like, da, 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 nah, nah, nah. It just like completely fell out of whack. And then the talking comes in and I'm out. I'm out. But she is lovely. I don't put that on her. I put that on her team.
Why do you hate Russians? Why don't you talk about Americans?
Amazing. You know, the first Moonlight Sonata program I fell in love with was the Gordieva Grinkov. That was a great edit.
You mean you weren't around for the Protopopovs? I mean, God. Okay.
Amazing. Anyway. Like, remember when Dick Button called him like spun candy? It's like, oh my gosh, amazing. And then we saw them live in Boston.
I hope he's going to tweet for the Olympics. I mean, come on.
That was the best. That was the best.
Yes. Oh,
you should offer to help.
God, I want to go to the house with, oh yes.
With the gardens in the shape of the figures. Yeah.
Ioaxis Violus. Yes, of course. Yes. Our friend Freddie has been there. He like knows when he's doing his, yeah, I don't know. Freddie's everywhere.
Oh, see, I didn't, when you did that extensive like interview and the big videos and all that stuff, I didn't know if you actually went out there or if you were just talking over the telephone with him. After his book came out and stuff too, remember?
Okay, so I interviewed him in 2016. They had asked me to interview him in 2014, and then it got canceled. But I wrote the big review on him of the book, and he read it
and loved it. Yeah.
But then we wound up interviewing him through him having read that in 2016 at Boston Worlds. So
that's yes, okay.
That is how that happened. So yeah. It was like his PR person like called me to do it, and I researched it and like you're like, okay, you've got like, you know, a day to get this together. And you're like, okay. And then it got canceled as quick as I think there was something going on. So yeah. Anyway, we can I digress. But I thought that Audrey Shin was lovely here, but the real moment to me, and I loved her when we first saw her last season, and then she had such a rough season this fall, Rino from Japan, when she does that lunge movement on the ice, and she has the most, so I am like a person that's like a little bit of a Deanna, right? Like I can get tense in the shoulders, and Victor Petrenko is always like, relax it, you know, right? She has the most beautifully relaxed shoulders when she's skating, and she's just like Sandra Besicking the edges at you, and you're like, oh my God, you know, like she
and
skates.
There's Rino, Sandra Besicking all over the place. Yeah, okay.
Oh, she skates the way Sandra speaks, you know, you're like,
amazing.
Oh, right? I mean, even Sandra in meddling, she's sitting in that high back chair. Madam for life. It's inexcusable. Inexcusable. When you're just like, everything that she says.
It's just
and
elegant.
It's just like
elegant. Yeah.
She's just like skating, and then she's like, God, and you're like, I just love it so much. Okay. I love it. Just,
amazing. Do you remember that Martin Short character?
Over the place. Okay?
Yeah, just hanging upside down, pointing her toe on a sofa. Good for her.
But then you see Sandra talking about her. Well, this girl, she's a delight. She's a delight. Yes.
Oh, I miss Sandra. I miss
her so much.
But I'm intrigued because like Rino had some she was another step sequence at level 2 with like some red moments and some tough calls on her jumps in the short that kept her down ultimately. But a nice comeback in the free.
She was down way too much after the short to come back for the free, but her free was the moment. It was everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sandra Besicking all over the place. Oh God. Yes. Okay.
Amazing.
What was your moment of the week?
Okay, so let's see what I say. There are 2. Definitely one is the Jun Hwan cover-up moment after the quad south. Because we've talked about this when people will land a jump that maybe is not a little shaky and then they immediately go into a spread eagle as if that was always the plan. Or immediately at a transitional hop to cover up maybe a stiff moment. And so this, he just landed and just started twizzling and adding some beautiful arms. And I was like, fake it till you make it, honey. It was a great, great moment. And I'm going to say both of Daisuke's programs in content, just in choreographic content, just so appreciated it. And a nice moment for Mai. Come on, that was like a nice, beautiful, sentimental moment.
Well, obviously Rino's lunch, but one moment we did not discuss, and a man that has always had a beautiful Ina Bauer. We love a nice Ina Bauer, Jonathan, but
Like,
pay attention to Jun Hwan's head on his Ina Bauer in this program in the free skate. I mean, he beat my boy Kazuki, who I stan. Okay,
yeah,
we know
I am
skater. Yeah. Cheating for him left, right, and center, like Marie Renee Lagagne. All right, but who is now a Reiki healer and apparently teaches online yoga. We need to go. We need to go to her Zoom class. Like, she has been
fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
His head, he goes down and around with that hair, and he's got like that great hair. Like, it is such a moment, and it like hangs. It's like orbiting the sun. Okay. Like,
well, I'm glad you're saying this because I look at his edge and that beautiful arc in his back. It's just so
go
amazing.
watch his head.
I'm gonna
right
look
now.
at the hair. Okay.
Right now,
okay.
you go watch what's happening on that spread eagle. If that is not the most dramatic, just like moment that you have seen, and you're like, Sandra would live. Okay. It would be, she would find new ways to make that Ina Bauer come to life. Okay. It would just be.
I hope it carries him into the Olympics with some confidence. I mean, obviously, the toe and the side.
He's got an upward momentum.
Yeah,
Top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
I think things are possible for Jun Hwan.
Yeah.
But I like to refer to him by his Instagram name, June, July, August. More fun than Jun Hwan, right?
See, he's got a good personality. Yeah.
Mr. June, July, August, the best. Holden Edge looks sexy, everyone. But